Welcome back to another episode of East to West Stories with Sana. Today we have Zeenia Gul, a dietitian who's very passionate on telling us about building a healthy lifestyle through our food habits. Thanks, Zeenia, for being here with us. Can you please share your journey to become a dietitian?
Yeah, absolutely. So I finished high school and I did my dietetics degree at Griffith University, and I graduated in about, I think it was 2022. And since then I've worked in a few different places.
So currently you're working in a full-time capacity as a dietitian?
Yes. So I work for an NGO charity, and I work on one of their public health prevention programs in Brisbane.
That's great.
Yes.
So can you please also tell us your inspiration to become a dietitian?
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I was always surrounded around the health field. Everyone around me was in the health field. Both my parents are GPs, my grandparents, and that's all I knew. So I knew I wanted to do something in health, but it came back to what in health? Yeah, there's so many different degrees, and I liked the idea of dietetics because it was a combination of psychology, so that behavior psychology and change. It also had a lot of clinical biology, disease, pathophysiology, that aspect.
It has a package of different options as well, and probably a quicker way as well to improve people's life too.
Absolutely. I found that it was more preventative. There was a lot of upcoming research in the area, and I just saw a lot of value in it. And I thought it really suited my personality and just the balance that I was looking for. So,
that's great to hear, especially when you find a profession that really suits your personality too.
Yes.
So it's good that you're enjoying that role.
Absolutely.
So as this program is mainly based on South Asian communities, so I will dive more into there. So as your parents are from Pakistan, you mentioned there. So our South Asian food, that especially if we talk about India, Pakistan, so our food are spicy and has a lot of flavor though, but there is a misconception, or I don't know, it's misconception, but usually it's being called unhealthy. So I just would like you to clarify, or listeners as well who's listening us, that is that true, or why we call that unhealthy? What makes it unhealthy?
It's definitely a misconception. So obviously, if we say South Asian food, that's a really big bracket of population of the world, and lots of different cultures and different religions and, racial groups. So everyone has different foods. So I think it's a misconception to say it's unhealthy. There's some foods that are very healthy, like we take dal, which is one of our staples. Yeah. That's exceptionally healthy. It's fibrous. There's no saturated fat, basically. It's high in protein, plant-based
Especially
protein.
I'm going to talk about because desi ghee, for example, that we use, and we have a lot of alternatives like olive oil you could use, or different type of oils are available now. So, but having a maybe misconception that that is not healthy, and also lentils, as you talked about as well. So from your experience, I want to know that do you see people or come often with that question as well, that whether we should include this in our diet, or we just completely take it out or restrict ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So desi ghee, the thing we want to consider is that it is a saturated fat. And so there are different kinds of fats, and we are looking at which would be healthier for us long term. There's two kinds, saturated and unsaturated. Unsaturated fats are fats that we're looking for in our diet. That's avocados, that's peanuts, that's olive oil you just mentioned as well. That's your nuts and seeds, basically. So that's healthy. When we look at unhealthy fats or saturated fats, that's where we're looking at some of the precursors sometimes to plaque buildup, for example, or inflammatory markers. So we're looking to reduce down saturated fats, and that's desi ghee is in that group. And that can upset a lot of people, but unfortunately.
We don't want to upset listeners, but I will add to there as well. If you're eating that saturated fats as well, but if you have exercise in your routine, or a healthy lifestyle, which we call you're doing 30 minutes walk every day, or you have a gym or any kind of physical activity that you're doing, so that might balance. Is that true?
Absolutely. Everything in moderation. So if you were eating only desi ghee, rich foods, and not exercising and not eating any vegetables or fruits, of course that's going to be unhealthy.
Your body.
Yeah, but if we're moving adequately and we've got balance in our diet, and including desi ghee sometimes, then that's balance, and that's what we're looking for. So it's not to say don't include it. It's just when you
Moderation.
can. Moderation, yeah. 80% of the time, sticking to everyday foods like olive oils and that balance.
Especially avocado one, I have heard that people are saying, oh, that's it's a fat, so you don't need to. Then I said, you need to figure out which fat is there. Is it a good one or it's a bad one? So,
it's a really good point. Because there's like an umbrella term of fat that people think is bad, but fat's important for our hormonal control, our brain health. It's really important, especially as women.
Yeah. And other point I will add here as well, while we're talking about different food items. So sometime you see like reel or some information someone is passing on the internet or in different Instagram, for example, and having no background, proper qualifications, like as you being dietitian, so you can see that, okay, how that kind of advice could lead into our situations. So what would you say to our listeners that if you're unsure about anything or if you're following any diet plan, so then what are the considerations that need to be in mind while looking at watching that kind of a video?
Yeah, I think everything online, take with a grain of salt because they're not talking to you, they're talking to the audience, which is all of the public that watch it. So if you take that information on board, take it with a grain of salt and then go to your own health professional, allied health professional and talk to them about, does that apply to me? Because your health is individual to you. And there might be certain things that aren't considered.
Not good for you.
Exactly. And it could do more harm than good.
Yeah. No, that's because it is very common right now, especially lack of awareness about this subject, nutritionist value. Or so that's why I thought that it's good to clarify there whenever you're seeing or any that kind of a video advising you that you can lose weight, you can have without exercise. I personally don't believe that is true because with any food, if you're not doing any physical activity or exercise and you're losing weight, that may cause some kind of damage in your body so that you're not seeing instantly, but later on in your life, you will see the consequences as well.
Potentially, It's all a balanced approach. So it's got to be nutrition and exercise. And I think it's important that even if you take information on board that's from a TikTok or a reel, check the credentials of that person and make sure that they are, they have a degree, for example, behind them before they make a big claim. Are they referencing research in their claims? Most, reputable sources will actually put it in the notes of their reels or in a comment so that you can actually go and look at that evidence. So it's really important that we do our due diligence. And I come across lots of really false claims online all the time. And I'm constantly just having to, comment and be that keyboard warrior, say this is not right.
That's why the main purpose of today's show is also, Zeenia, to have this information shared with the wider community so we can help them, at least, if not many, at least few people who may get benefit from this. So that's really good to clarify. So I'm heading to a topic now, which is as you we approaching to a Ramadan month now. So my little bit conversation would be on that too. So even the people who are doing fasting in Ramadan month and some people who are doing intermittent fasting, different type of fasting. So what is the advice that we need to give, especially for the people who's observing Ramzan and having a plan of keeping fast and also have a plan of doing work? So what are the key considerations when they fasting, especially in the suhoor time, so they need to consider?
Yeah, that's a big one. So the first thing is that intermittent fasting and Ramadan, they're kind of similar because it's all about time-restricted eating.
Okay.
So you're restricting your eating time in a day and then you have a block of time where you are eating. Basically, it's the same
concept.
Same concept. Okay. Yeah, the time frames are a little bit different. For example, we're doing about 15 hours in Australia and, some people will do 10 hours with time-restricted eating. It just changes, but the same benefits are linked up and there are plenty of studies that actually compare, for example, gut health outcomes of both and that they both benefit us depending on the diet that we eat.
Okay.
So the key is that it actually gives our gut rest and that's the biggest part of it and it reduces down extra foods that we might be having, which means extra calories, which means less inflammation.
Like parathas, can we eat parathas in
Yes, so for suhoor. So suhoor you want to think about, what's your aim with having suhoor? It's for balanced energy levels because you want to get through the day. Like you said, you're a working person, so am I. We want energy to get through the day as best as we can. And then we also want to have least amount of gut disruption because we don't normally eat at that time. Hey, we're not eating at 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. So there's two elements to that. So some gut healthy foods and also the energy rich foods. So if I give the example of, for example, oats. So if you've got oats, oats is a low GI carbohydrate. And so for listeners, that's a low glycemic index food, which means that it doesn't impact your blood sugar levels as much, which means that it stays or releases those sugars slowly,
in your
which
body.
is what we want because we need energy for as long as we can because we're going to go through a big fast.
15 hours.
Low GI foods. We want some probiotic foods at that time. So that could be some Greek yogurt or some kefir at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even like pratas, or if you're taking high calorie foods, but because some people are habitual of doing exercise as well while fasting too. So because now I think it's a trend that it works more when you are in fasting and you do exercise. So therefore they may use that high calorie intake in the morning, like parathas and all that stuff, and consuming through the day and then doing exercise. I think that should still be okay if they're eating parathas but going to gym or doing some activity to,
Yeah, it depends. So if, for example, when are you doing the exercise would be the main thing. I
have heard that before you do iftari.
Yes.
So it's the best time that works.
See, that's a claim, right? I couldn't
Really?
say that it is because I need to read research to say that it is the best time. But I think often because our fasts are so long, 16 hours, it is probably most helpful to actually exercise when you're not fasting. So when you break your fast, it's personal. Because when you think about exercise on an empty stomach, you're actually putting your body under a certain amount of stress.
Yes.
And you're already under so much stress than the 16 hours without water or food.
Yes.
So it's
and
something
especially
to
if you're
think
working
about.
as well, if you're working and having a hectic routine and then on top of. So when we're coming to a iftari point, so I want to raise, because we want to keep our traditional food as well.
Yes.
We like samosas, we like pakoras too. So
Yes,
so we want to have that in diet. So how do you see that as unhealthy when you have fasting for the whole day and then straight away jumping into samosas or pakoras when you breaking your fast? So is that okay, or we need to be having some like considerations while choosing that food first?
Yeah, definitely considerations, because we want foods that will nourish us, because we're eating less food overall. We want it to be better quality in this time. So include your samosas, include your pakoras, but in a limited amount. So it's about having one or two rather than a whole plate full.
Yeah.
Because then you're leaving room. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the bearer of bad news. But just one or two. Moderation is the key.
Okay.
So even if it's one a day.
So see, I think what I'm learning from this conversation is that basically is controlling yourself. So like in Ramadan, controlling our body to stay away from different things that are forbidden, and also controlling on our body as well. That you saying, okay, you can still eat, but no, this is the time that you don't need to eat there. So controlling on your emotions and controlling. So main is there. So like samosa or pakora, you may desire for more, but I think when considering, okay, how good is that for your health if you're taking more and not doing any exercise? So probably then that's a worst case scenario.
Yeah. What you mentioned is interesting, because there's two types of eating. There's hunger, and then there's appetite. Hunger is that you're eating your baseline needs. So eating as much as you need to survive and carry on, which we also know is a big part of our sunnah, that we eat just enough to keep going, not an excess. But when we eat according to appetite, that's when we eat with our eyes. And we've got unlimited food. We can order anything from anywhere at any time. So it's really important
balancing
to acknowledge, am I eating out of hunger or habit / appetite?
So I'm also going to touch a little bit about women's hair. So as during fasting month, they may have a different type of conditions. So then, and they're fasting as well, and they're working. So I would like to know the best advice for them. But before I ask you, I just want to let listeners know that all the information that we are sharing here on this platform is just for public awareness. So we're not making a diet plan for anyone. So, and we're just advising what's best for you. But if you have any kind of conditions, you I would suggest you seek a medical attention or talk to your general practitioner who could give you the best advice and who could refer you to the dietitian who can prepare a meal plan for you. So yeah, back to women's health. So
Absolutely. So the first thing is, if you're concerned, go to your GP. Because they're
that's
going
the
to
first
know,
advice,
they're going to know your health background, and they'll be able to give you clear guidance of, is it safe or is it not? Depending on, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding or if you've got diabetes
or heart conditions
Absolutely.
or whatever conditions.
It's a conversation to have,
with a GP.
a month before Ramadan. If you haven't done that, do it now. It's important.
It's not too late. Yeah,
absolutely. And the second thing would be is to plan. The way you're eating outside of Ramadan to manage your diabetes or health conditions, whatever it may be, you need to adjust your plan, obviously. So sit down and think about how you can do that with your GP or with your allied health professional.
Yeah, that's the best, I think, advice for women as well, especially because they need a lot of energy to balance like their own health as well. And I think with women, especially being immigrants, so you may notice that a lot of ladies, they forget about themselves because they're more caring about the family, and especially in Ramadan, we have a big feast as well in iftar time. So they're more worrying about others, so they always forget about themselves. So I think through this platform, I strongly recommend. So, and women's...
I will add one thing with that, is that around the feasting, is that we know what's the core of Ramadan, is that we want to be eating
in moderation.
In moderation.
Yes,
and that's the sunnah. That's what we've been told to do. So we want to make sure that it's not about feasting. Hey, it's about
controlling yourself.
It's about the reset, and then taking think about your intention with your fasts as well. It's not about feasting or buffets or big things. It's about just resetting yourself and eating according to how we've been guided to from the sunnah. And
I totally agree with that, and I think listeners would agree on that too.
Yeah.
So I also want to know, because fasting months, so when it's finished, so then getting back to your normal routine and eating habits, so how we can keep balance there, because we do for 30 days and we control ourselves. Okay, we're not eating. And I think a lot of people also do that. It's the best month to lose the weight as well. So because then you have to follow the sunnah, and then you have to stay away from few things. So, but once it's finished, so we see a lot of people get back to their normal routine. So how we can control ourselves there?
It's a hard one. It's a hard one because we end up in the same cycle each year. But I think if you're really intentional, if you
really care about your body.
Yeah. Well, if you think about at the start of Ramadan, why are you going to do this? What's your actual internal reasoning for making change or for fasting, for going through that hard day of no water or food.
Or no tea.
No tea, no coffee. But why? If you know your strong why, you can then after Ramadan say, well, how did I go without it? Was I okay? Did I make it? You did, right? So the best thing to do would be set some goals for yourself. Yeah. So some goals around how to create more balance outside of Ramadan. And that could be that you use the portion control plate, which some of you might have seen. It's like that healthy plate that's half plate
where
veg.
we have veggies and we have less carbohydrates there.
Yeah, beautiful. 1/4 carbohydrate, 1/4 protein. And so even if we follow that at dinner time rather than iftar outside of Ramadan, that's going to be the best thing to keep going, because that's portion, that's moderation, that's variety. It's ticking off all the boxes that we need.
And also for a healthy lifestyle as well. Yeah. So while you want to stay, if you want to stay healthy, basically.
Absolutely. It's a long-term thing. So
the commitment with, because we're seeing in very young age, people having different type of issues, and diabetes is very common now, especially with our ethnicities. So, and the main reason is that controlling, because we can't control, and even we notice there where we go, we have sugary drinks, and we have, and we can't say no. So I think that no is good to say, and to bring your routine into a healthy path. So I think that's something that we all need to practice.
Absolutely. We could all do a little bit better.
We always try to improve ourselves. No one is perfect.
Exactly.
And so even if we keep ourselves, no one is perfect, but we're trying to improve. With the learnings and lessons that we listen, and especially if we want to avoid diseases that's around us.
Absolutely.
And trying to control over us. So I also want to touch a little bit. So I'm not sure if we can talk much on that subject, but is that protein shakes and a lot of things. So protein shakes that usually people prefer to boost themselves quickly when they're doing gym or any exercise. So in your perspective, how good is that for health?
That's a really hard question because everyone's health goals are different and their baseline health is really different.
For generic, like, is it good to use if your body, like, how do we know that I need that? Because it gives you energy and boost and all the proteins probably there that your body need. But how do I know that, okay, my body is having less protein, or like, how do I count that?
It's a good question. So that's the kind of figure that you'd come up with in a dietitian. If you sit down and have an appointment with them, you'd come up with how much protein do you need in a day. And so that's based off your body weight and some certain conditions. So some conditions need more protein, some need less. So that's not a figure I could just throw out there, unfortunately.
No, because what I have noted there, a lot of people, they just go and buy off the shelf product. And because I also have seen some have a high sugary content in it, and they still feel people, okay, we're using that for energy intake or going for gym, we're just putting in a water and then just taking, and it gives us energy. But that energy in the background, how it creates a lot of problem, because you're not being consulting any dietitian, you're just making your own choice, you're just making your own choice brand and reading instruction and following.
It depends, because there's lots of different brands and some of them aren't regulated, some of them are. So you're looking for a certain stamp that is regulated. I don't know the name of it right now.
We don't want to tell because it's everyone's having different own liking, disliking, and I'm, as this platform is not any branding, so I will, but just understanding there.
So with protein shakes, they are highly processed. So coming back to it is, what's the goal of having a protein shake? We're trying to get more protein in. We can also get that through food. So why not then include different food groups? Like you could have nuts and milk, and you might have cottage cheese, or you might have paneer. Like there's lots of different proteins. And if we intentionally include them, some of them are higher in protein compared to others. So protein shakes usually give us about 25 to 30 grams of protein in one serve if it's made on water, generally. Then if we compare that, you can get that through food. If you're
and then
sitting
you
down and planning it. Exactly.
Food,
and you're actually then building your relationship with food without the processing element. So you definitely can meet 25 grams of protein through food. So if you think about it, 2 eggs is 12 grams of protein. So you could add some extra foods on top to meet 25, and your meal has now hit 25 grams of protein. So not alternate. The first option should be your meal, good food. Absolutely, food first.
So this is, I think, also reiterating that message. Research is very important.
Yes.
Like, so even if I'm not a dietitian, but still I need to know what's good food for me and what's not. And I think for listeners as well, whoever is conscious about health, they should have some research with authentic sources, plus also consult their dietitians or the doctors to seek the better advice, what's good for them. So I also want to touch, because I have already taken a lot of your time, so I just want to wrap up with few things. Gut health is a big focus in your practice. So then can you please explain what this means and how it works with a digesting system? So
So your gut is like an ecosystem. It contains millions, trillions, billions of bacteria, viruses and fungi. And so basically they're good and they're bad. And you want to help your body by embracing more good bacteria, because when you give your body the fuel to create more bacteria. So, for example, if I eat an apple versus some white bread, which is highly processed, the apple feeds the good bacteria and helps it multiply. What that means is that it then actually has been proven to reduce risk of, for example, chronic disease. It can improve insulin sensitivity. It can improve your immune function as well. When we eat that whole food, prebiotic foods, probiotic foods, it actually strengthens our gut lining physically. There's so many benefits that we see. It improves our inflammatory markers. So gut health it's not just your gut. It's interlinked with all of your body systems.
And with all upcoming risks that your health could have there.
Absolutely. So you want to embody more. You want to create more opportunities to improve your gut health.
With the good food.
With variety in your foods, with prebiotic foods and probiotic foods. So prebiotic is basically foods with fiber in it. So fruits, vegetables, starchy foods as well. So we have something called resistant starch. Have you heard of that?
Not really.
No? Okay. So resistant starch is basically like rice, pasta, oats, starchy foods that have been cooked once
Okay.
and then cooled.
Okay.
And they actually then the bonds in the starch become harder for you to digest, which means it ferments more in your gut.
Oh, we keep that rice 2-3 days in the
Exactly.
fridge.
So you see how our cultures actually
That's
really
right.
embrace that already. And dal, that's beans. That's a
Really?
starchy food that we cook once, we cool, we keep it, we
3
eat,
days.
eat
and-
it again and again.
So then does that mean
It's
that
better for your
having
health.
for 3 days or even second days is not good? Like we just need to consume when we make it? Or?
No, the opposite. So if it's harder for you to digest, it's becoming fermented in your gut,
All
which
right.
means it's better quality food
If it
for your
stays longer.
bacteria.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So we call
That's
that resistant
interesting.
starch, and it's exceptionally good for your health.
Oh,
and
okay.
that's actually been linked really highly with reduction in chronic disease. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Like I never heard that before. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Resistant starch.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good learning though. So what is the biggest nutritionist myth that I would say that you want to break here? You want to say that, no, guys, this is not.
Yeah. Meal plans. Meal plans don't work.
Really?
They don't work at all.
Oh,
yeah.
in Facebook or any platform, you see
Yeah.
even when you're talking, you see same type of things.
Yeah.
And they tell you free health plans. So
Yeah.
free meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So in your opinion, that's not good to follow straight away.
Well, it's not realistic. I think even if I think back to when I've come across a meal plan and I've said, I'm going to follow this 100%, I've done it for a day and then it's fallen off.
it's
It
fallen
doesn't
off.
happen.
Yeah.
And the listeners think about when they have tried that, probably lasted a day, 2 days,
Yeah,
3
or a
days.
maximum a week, I think.
Maximum, right? And that's the thing, is that eating is a behavior.
Yeah,
So
that's
we need
right.
to think about how can we build a new habit.
Resilience, yeah.
So instead of, for example, having a packet of chips at afternoon tea, I might have an apple instead.
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
the only goal I set,
Yes,
right? It's
yeah.
about small changes and just focusing on one thing at one time, not everything at once. So
No, that's that's it's hard but not impossible. Nothing is impossible. So you
possible.
can still achieve this if
Very
you're being
possible.
strict on there.
Yeah.
No. Thank you so much. Last thing that I want to say, Zeenia, that if our listeners want to reach out to you, so what is the best way?
yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me for bookings and appointments and referrals at my email.
Okay. Yeah, we will provide that in the program notes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. And we have really learned a lot, especially misconceptions that we have heard about unhealthy food. So it's great to know that it's not all that. So we just need to be careful and control ourselves and think from our own mind rather than just following someone's. If this plan has worked for ABC, it would work for me. So that is not going to happen. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Sana.
Thanks, listener, for listening us today. So today's show was very insightful, especially about healthy food, because we have a lot of misconceptions and a lot of information is on internet. But I always suggest, as Zeenia mentioned, that seek your medical practitioner advice before you choose any meal plan. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel and also to add review of our program. Until next time, stay healthy and stay connected. Thank you.